I'm Dorothy Taylor Wells. My mother was Rosetta Eby Taylor, youngest daughter of Stephen and Elizabeth Farnsworth Eby. I will try to recall for you some of the stories that have been told through the years, or perhaps I should say generations, of our family. Our grandfather used to tell about the first time he saw our grandmother. He was a boy of 19, and he had gone to her home looking for work. And he saw her come out on the porch and stand looking at the flowers that grew along the side of the back door. He said to himself, "That is the prettiest girl I ever saw in my life." They were married before Grandpa reached his 20th birthday, and Grandma was 17. Grandpa was a proud, arrogant sort of person who took great pride in his family, and Grandma feared he might look down on her if he knew she had Indian blood, so she never told him. And the only person she did tell was her youngest child, our Uncle Ed, and he was very proud of his Indian ancestor, but he never told the story until both of his parents were gone. The story is told of a boy whose mother was the daughter of an Iroquois chief and an English gentleman. When the boy was old enough to go to school, his father took him to England to be educated. He was a brilliant boy, and he graduated from Oxford University. He wanted to come home, so he came back to his childhood home to learn that his grandfather had died, leaving no male heirs, so the boy became the chief of his mother's tribe. Because of his understanding of both races, he was able to bring peace and understanding between the Indians and the white settlers. One day he met a pretty little white girl whose name, of all things, was Cinderella Stout. He fell in love with her, but there must have been difficulties because he kidnapped her, or so it was said, but I always had my suspicion that Cinderella didn't mind at all. They were our grandmother's great-grandparents. We were never able to learn his English name, but his Indian name was Summerstorm. It was traditional in my grandmother's family to give the daughters Indian middle names. Grandma's name was Oa Issa, which means bluebird. Of course, the practice stopped with her. When Uncle Ed was 7, he and his mother visited her brother Aaron. And he took them to an encampment of Iroquois Indians near his home and asked them if they knew of a chief named Summerstorm. They certainly did know of him and began to tell stories of how great and how good he was. Uncle Aaron said this child is a direct descendant of Summerstorm. The Indians were thrilled and put a little war bonnet of eagle feathers on his head, painted him with war paint, did a tribal dance around him, and named him Summerstorm II. It was an experience he never forgot. It may or may not have been her Indian heritage, but Grandma was psychic. She could see and hear things that were happening miles away. Once, when a very small child, she burst out laughing and said, "Oh, Nell stumbled and Pat fell in the creek." When her father came home, soaking wet, he told them it had happened just as Lizzie had seen it. One time later in life, she saw Grandpa dragged by a team of runaway mules and was terrified until he came home and she saw he hadn't been seriously hurt. Her mother was afraid of her gift and discouraged her so much that she tried to suppress it and didn't develop her powers as she might have. Grandpa and Grandma had 9 children. One little boy died when he was 11, another baby boy died at birth, and the other 7 grew to a ripe old age.